It was created in 1958, round about the time of the Notting Hill riots. And I then had the chance of premises in Notting Hill, in Princedale Road, number 74 Princedale Road, a building which had originally been purchased by Arnold Leese for the benefit of Britain's Publishing Society. Arnold Leese died in 1956, and his widow, not long afterwards, made the premises available to me in place of the Britain's Publishing Society, who moved to somewhere else in the same part of London. Now, the White Defence League lasted from 1958 to 1962, when the National Socialist movement was created. No, I must correct that. The White Defence League was founded a little later than 1958. It might have been 1959. I'm a little hazy on its precise birth date. Anyhow, it achieved quite a lot of prominence for a small and short-lived venture. By that I mean it resulted in my appearance on the Panorama programme. That had its amusing aspects. In the morning I was interviewed at the home of a sympathiser in the Notting Hill area. I just don't recall the name of the interviewer for Panorama, but he was someone who went on to a diplomatic position in North America. Anyhow, it was quite a fair and quite a lengthy interview. When it was eventually shown, it was really quite good. Now, at the end of that morning interview, I was told that there was to be a second part to things, and that was to be at their studios, and that their plan then was to have a number of, I suppose what we would call showbiz people present, and they'd go the rounds asking them their opinion of this horrible man and his horrible organisation, and perhaps give me a little chance of a reply. So I duly went along, and they'd got Johnny Dankworth and Cleo Lane and there's another fellow now. I forget some of the names now, I must admit. Anyhow, they'd got a scene suggestive of a kind of pub, and they went the rounds asking these people their opinion, which I need hardly stress was not exactly complimentary to me and my organisation. And then they came back to me, and that was it. Of course, in that afternoon event, they gave the preponderance of opportunity to the other side speaking. But if only for the morning affair, it was very worthwhile. I was quite pleased when I saw it shown. That was quite a thing for the White Defence League. It had quite a lot of publicity, and although it was in the very centre of Notting Hill, we survived. In fact, such were the different conditions of those days that we could send out teams of leaflet distributors, and they could go out in that area of Notting Hill, and they could put their leaflets through doors, and they could emerge afterwards and return still alive. I mean, that wouldn't be the case today, I'm quite sure. Yes, things were that much different then. We had a wire grill over what was the shop window on the ground floor, on the inside of which we sort of had posters and literature. And the colours used to come along, and rather like monkeys, they used to shake the grill, but that's as far as it went. They didn't, do anything more drastic than that. And so the White Defence League lasted for about a couple of years. It had an amount of publicity out of all proportion to its membership, which was very, very small, and the real significance of the thing. It ended with its amalgamation with something called the National Labour Party, run by John Bean. He got together with me and we decided in favour of an amalgamation. And so that earlier British National Party was created with its headquarters at 74 Princedale Road, the old White Defence League premises. In time, tension reached boiling point over those that wanted to follow a distinct National Socialist course and those that didn't. And those that didn't found their leadership in John Bean. So there was a split, and out of that split, John Tyndall and I founded the National Socialist movement at the beginning of 1962. Now, we conceived the idea of trying to arrange a meeting in Trafalgar Square as a good launch pad, and to our amazement we were given the necessary permission. I have to say that after that meeting and a Moseley Union Movement meeting that followed shortly afterwards, there was never again, to my knowledge, an occasion when the authorities took the risk of allowing such a meeting. Anyhow, this Sunday came, I think it was either the 1st or the 2nd July 1962, and we went along there. We had a huge placard, it was in sections for ease of transport, that covered the whole of the span of the plinth of, in Trafalgar Square, Free Britain from Jewish Control. Quite striking that was. And also quite striking was the fact that well before the meeting started, there was a sizable and growing contingent of opponents. At its height, I think the crowd came to something in the region of 5,000, but there was about 500 at the front who were largely Jews, and if not Jews, they were of a left-wing persuasion. And of course they showed in no unmistakable way, well before the meeting started, that they were there to try and wreck it. Now, we got going. We got 3 speakers. Dennis Pirrie was the first one, John Pindall was the second, and I was the third. Well, of course, the uproar gathered pace from speaker to speaker, and coming third, I had the full torrent. I must say that we had a fair deal from the police, the likes of which we would not get and no one else would get today. The chap in charge was the Chief Superintendent Burgoyne, and he was a good stick. Really, he could have, if he wanted to, he could have come up with the excuse that things were getting out of hand, and he could have stopped the meeting and stopped it finally at quite an early stage. But he let Pirrie carry on, although I think it was actually 5 times he had to ask us to pause while the police fought to restore order. It was that sort of situation. Well, you know, today, I mean, they'd never ask you just to pause and be putting you in the van, and that'd be the end of it. Anyhow, it came to my turn, and I can say that I got within about 3 or 4 minutes of the end of my speech when Burgoyne said, you know, I'm awfully sorry, it's getting beyond us. And really it was a seething mess down there. Things, every conceivable sort of object was being thrown at us. And he closed the meeting. Well, of course, that wasn't the end of the problem. We had the problem of getting away in one piece. You've referred to the front page photograph on the Daily Telegraph and other papers of the battle to get the Land Rover away. I don't quite remember where John Tyndall had managed to secrete this Land Rover, which he was driving, or how he managed to get it back from where he'd hidden it to collect all the gear, you see. But they had quite a fight to get away from the thing, and as you say, there was Martin Webster wielding this placard. I believe that in the end, Tyndall sort of got going. Some Jew got in the way, and I believe part of the Land Rover went over part of the Jew, because there were reports of, squirming and screaming and whatnot. Anyhow, while all this was taking place, I and others were still on the plinth. And some police officer came up to me. He said, "If I was you," he said, "I'd just go to the other side and drop off." I thought, thanks for nothing, because they were still swirling about there. Anyhow, it had to be done, and we dropped off. I remember that in making our way through the remaining throng, there was one Jew, and he prostrated himself on the ground, and he was saying, "A Jewish curse on you, a Jewish curse on you." Not that it seemed to have any permanent ill effect on us, but it was quite amusing. The police closed the underground station for about half an hour or so after we'd got through, and therefore we were able to get away, and we came out in one piece. And that was Trafalgar Square. But it had quite an impact. I remember, as an example, I remember an American writing and saying, "I was having a bath with the radio on," he said, "and there came this news flash that a riot had broken out in downtown London," it said. Well, that was our Trafalgar Square meeting.